remain silent and standing. All military personnel in uniform will run to the hand salute, and it is appropriate for all others to place their right hand over their heart upon the command of present arms. Thank you. Present. Oh!
Tell me what happened and what people should know about the day, June 8th, regarding the USS Liberty.
It was a beautiful sunny day. The morning preceding the attack, there were 12 overflights of Israeli aircraft observing us, very friendly, and so much so that some of the crew that were on duty were sunbathing and beach chairs and towels, so you can imagine what the Israeli pilots saw of our crew. And what I'm getting at is that we were relaxed because the Israelis were keeping an eye on us, that we were not an offensive ship, we were not a man of war, aggressive and military-like as far as being belligerent, we were not. And in the afternoon, about 2 o'clock, all of a sudden, Israeli aircraft came out of the sky and started strafing and bombing the ship. And the attack was in 3 phases: aircraft, followed by motor torpedo boats, and lastly, Marines in helicopters. The Israelis killed 34 of my shipmates, wounded 174. I guess the Marines in helicopters were there to finish us off, but at the last minute it was all called off and they flew away. They left the ship adrift and badly damaged, but because of our great damage controlmen, we were able to pull it together, and a great captain, we pulled it together and sailed from harm's way.
You were on the ship when this happened?
Yes.
What was going through your mind when you saw the attack? Did you know who was attacking you? And if you did, what were your thoughts at that time?
No, I was below deck the entire attack, and I did not know who was attacking us. It wasn't until later that I found out that it was the Israelis. And I was very upset that we're supposed to be our ally would be so vicious to try and sink the ship as hard as they did, and they got away with murder. President Johnson gave them a free pass, and Congress didn't seem like it was serious enough for them to investigate.
Why do you think they were allowed to get away with this bombing and this attack?
Well, I firmly believe that with the Johnson administration, we changed course as far as the Middle East is concerned. And we've been going down that wrong course ever since. What I'm getting at is that prior to Johnson administration, we had a balanced Middle East policy. With Johnson, that all changed, and we sided with the Israelis, and we've created an 800-pound gorilla. And we've been suffering for it ever since. I'm not saying that Israel shouldn't exist, but look at history and look at what they've done, and ask yourselves why isn't there peace in Palestine right now? Things need to change. But anyway, the reason they got the pass was Johnson was determined that we should change our attitude towards the Middle East, and I guess with the support of the Israeli lobby, that's all changed.
Where are you coming from, Ernest?
I'm from Florida.
From Florida. You flew all the way up here from Florida.
Actually, we've been traveling. We've been driving. We went to a wedding. We went to visit family. And this culminates the trip. And as soon as we're finished, I'm going to get on the road and start driving back to Florida again.
What anniversary is this?
This is we were attacked in '67, so it's the 46th.
46. What would you like to see changed? You keep talking about things need to change. There needs to be change. What would you like to see changed?
I would like to, first of all, our Congress has never investigated the USS Liberty. The closest I've seen to that idea was a conversation we had with the counselors for Senator Warner's legal counsel. The Congress has a mandate from our Constitution to investigate any and all incidents of ships that are attacked in peacetime, and they have, with the exception of the USS Liberty. People need to ask themselves, why is that? Why are they dodging that bullet? They should investigate it, and from that, we'll go from there.
Okay, my name is Josie Toth Linen, and I'm the sister of Stephen Spencer Toth. And he was one of the 34 killed on the USS Liberty, June 8, 1967. The planes that first came on us to attack us were unmarked. So Stephen was sent to the top part of the ship where it was totally exposed, and he was trying to find out what the planes were, who they were, because we didn't know if it was the Russians or what, because the Cold War was going on at that time. He was hit by a rocket and blown down 4 decks, so that ended that little expose. In any case, the ship was hit with, after that, with slower moving planes. They dropped napalm. They committed war crimes. When you have unmarked planes, that's a war crime. And then later on, the shooting at the stretcher bearers and the lifeboats that they dropped, thinking they would put the wounded in there, that's a war crime. So of all countries to do a war crime, it was Israel. Of all countries. And now they've covered it up brilliantly and beautifully. They do a very good job of it. And so here we come, still a small group and still there, and after we're gone, our families will be there, still the same kind of situation. Now, one little unknown thing, when the attack was going on in the middle of it, first of all, they were shooting, when they first attacked us, they were trying to make sure that we couldn't radio or get word to the 6th Fleet, which was about 15 minutes away. So they shot at the wiring and so forth. There was one man who strung wire and risked his life and got it back together. The antenna, which they had trouble with, actually got better as a result of the bombing. And so they got word to the 6th Fleet. And McNamara said, send the planes back. There were planes sent off from the Saratoga. And so we're in the middle of this, but anyway. So the Saratoga, they were told to be sent back. Some trumped up excuse, some nuclear something or other. They were sent back and looked over. The planes were sent back out again. I don't know if it was from the America or the Saratoga at this point. Nevertheless, again, McNamara said, we said send the planes back. Well, Admiral Martin said, request confirmation of orders, sir, meaning I want to talk to your boss. So Johnson got on. Here's what he said, little known fact. And this was told later on by Admiral, I think it was Admiral Geis, who told Dave Lewis, one of the officers on the ship, who was one of the survivors. He was still recovering in the hospital in Portsmouth. He said, we want you to know we did not deliberately not go and help you. We want you to know that Johnson said to the Admiral, I don't give a damn if the ship sinks and every man drowns. I don't want to embarrass our allies, Israel. So he also knew that it was Israel right in the middle of the attack. He knew it was Israel automatically. For whatever reason, I don't know. So that's something that should be brought out. Now, after that, the cover-up began, the whitewash, the court of inquiry, so-called court of inquiry. Admiral Kidd, who had at that time a really bad flu and high fever, had to interview the sailors, pretend like he was their friend for a while, so they'd get him to open up and say everything they knew. Then he put his stars back on his shoulder and said, now I want you to know this is not to go anywhere, even to your wives, forever. Otherwise you're under court-martial or worse. These little 19-year-olds were scared to death they'd be shot or something. So they've held it all in for at least a good 30 years, I think. I'm a little nebulous on the amount of years, but nobody was talking. The senator's, what's his name, McCain. Admiral McCain, who was head of the whole area, he was under orders too. And he ordered Kidd to do what he did, and to put in this, and there was a very courageous young lawyer officer named Merlin Starring who died recently. And he said, there's errors in this, I can't, and he said, well, never mind. And so Admiral McCain got it to another officer who would just hand it off and get it to Washington immediately, and then get it in the hands of Strom Thurmond, I believe, Senator Strom Thurmond. So that's how that went. So the cover-up began there, and it's been continuing ever since. In the meantime, with the Israelis, they're as squirrely as they can be. Oh, it was an accident. Oh, it was a fog of war. Oh, it was a tragic mistake. Well, so here we are today with that same kind of thing, and they definitely know better. They said, oh, we thought it was a Egyptian horse carrier ship, an old rusted ship that's never been untied from its port for decades, about half the size of the Liberty. And of course they had 5 hours of surveillance prior to the attack. in clear weather. So they knew it was, I mean, the sailors were waving at the pilots and the pilots were waving back at the Liberty guys. Those were the first planes that came just to survey everything. And then when the attacking planes came, well, that was not very welcome, of course, and a lot of guys died. And then after the rockets with 850 big holes, huge holes, I mean, it's a miracle the ship stayed afloat from that. And then there was the little bit of napalm, and then after that was the torpedo boats. And one of them hit and was inches away from where it would have exploded the entire ship. And then after that, they had, I think it was, they had, oh yes, helicopters with armed troops ready to shoot down at anybody that was left alive on the ship. So the idea was to do just like they did at the Lavon affair in 1950s, when they didn't want anybody to think that they had done it, but that the Arabs had done it. They want to put the onus on the Arabs. So the same thing, if every man was drowned and killed and the ship sunk, oh, we would automatically think the Arabs did it. So in the meantime, the Russians had said if we landed during this 6-day war period, which is what it was, and by the way, this ship was in international waters, not in any waters that Israel could claim. So the next thing that they did was to say, oh, well, at this point, the admiral had given the orders to send the planes back, but he had shut off radio communication so that the Israelis could not hear that the order was. So they didn't know if we were still coming to defend the ship. So at that point, that armed helicopter went off. And then the torpedo boat said, oh, can we help? And the Captain McGonigal said some choice words that I can't repeat here. And so they broke off. That ship was deserted until way into the night. Some of those wounded could not be helped by what little bit of medical means they had on that small ship. The wounded were on top of dining room tables, and they did the triage as best they could. But when your body is just filled and filled and filled with blood, and they don't have the sucking machines to get it all out, that's how Larry Bland died, under severe, not even with enough morphine to go around. It was horrible, frankly. He died at 1:30 in the night. Still no help from anybody. And the ship was listing, but still afloat by the grace of God, because I don't know if we had, we did have, it looked like nuclear something or other going off of one of the, I think the America. This is according to Peter Humnam's book, Operation Cyanide, and said that if that ship had sunk, maybe we would have been involved in some way. In the meantime, I heard, this has to be verified, that the Soviets had submarines underwater off of our eastern shores from Charleston to Boston, and if we had set boots on the ground in Israel, they would have fired rockets on every one of our major cities going up the coast. Not too many people know that, I don't think. So there's some interesting, scary, and how close we came to World War III over it, I don't know, but I'd just say by the angels holding up that ship and the grace of God, they stayed afloat, and nothing more happened than already did happen. Now they claim, oh, the flag wasn't flying, we didn't see the flag. Pure day like this, stiff breeze, 5 hours of surveillance, ha-ha. Numbers painted clearly on the ship. And then again, when they were shooting at us, they knew our frequencies. So they jammed the frequencies so that we couldn't, supposedly couldn't get word. However, when they were actually firing, that's when they couldn't do the jamming. And that's how we got word to the 6th Fleet in the first place. So that's the story of the Liberty. And so we still honor the 34 that were killed, but we also honor those that were still wounded, still under post-traumatic stress, still no compensation of any kind. Just a little bit of over Navy pay, but nothing much. The 34 that were killed, there was some compensation that my father was able to arrange for them under great duress and difficulty, and it cost him his health and his life. My father was captain in the Navy. He was class of 31, same as Admiral McCain. And so there the story goes. And I feel for the men. It's not justice right now. that the men who saw could not go to Congress and say what they saw and what they heard. How can one foreign power be so powerful that they disallow and they twist the arms of the congressmen and senators there not to have any hearing where they can go before the Congress and the nation and say, here's what happened and here's what really happened, and it was not an accident, and here's what we saw, etc., etc., and give full witness, just like every other kind of attack that ever has happened in this country. Like Brothers to the Rescue in Cuba once upon a time. That was 2 little planes. Like a value jet crash that happened in Florida years ago. Like, well, that's just some examples. People were able to go and see what they saw and heard. This was not supposed to be a war against us. We were not. And, you know, it goes on. And I can understand why some of the Arabs are upset. So there we are with that. But that's beyond my further being able to say anything about it. So there it is.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.